Hello friends, welcome to another showcase of our GeoDjango tutorial. And we are going to be, in this tutorial, we're going to be looking at configuring our development environment. So what is a development environment? A development environment, my reference or my definition of a development environment is whereby you have softwares and tools that help you to develop a certain solution as a developer. So in this case, we are going to be installing the tools that we need. We are going to be configuring the folders and the directories, if any, and files that we are going to be using towards developing our location-aware application. So let's get started. So after downloading, and it will prompt us to enter a username. In this case, I'm just going to call these jQuery codes as a username. Then I'm going to enter the password, and it's also additionally it's going to ask you to enter the password a second time. And then we have our Ubuntu configured or installed successfully, and user also created successfully. So if you want to access, you can close the terminal and open it again. If you want to access Ubuntu, or in your Windows search, if you search for Ubuntu, you're going to see it as installed as a software or as one of the softwares. So you can just click on it to open the window. So for example, let me just close this and then open the terminal again. And whenever I come here and click Ubuntu 22, so you see now we are inside our Ubuntu. So we have been able to install Ubuntu successfully. So the next step will be configuring or installing the tools. So remember we had talked about installing Python, and I think I already have a command for that somewhere. So as a first step, we're going to sudo apt update, and then we're going to, of course, upgrade sudo apt upgrade just to ensure that our operating system is up to date. Yes, so after it has installed, we have already installed what is it called? We have already installed updated our Ubuntu. So the next step is installing Python. So Ubuntu comes with many Linux distributions come with maintainers remove some modules from the standard Python library. So for our setup, we need to install these pip setup tools, wheel and distribution utilities libraries. So that will be our next step, and it should not take a lot of time. Yeah. So after installing the required Python libraries, so there is a reference I like to make by installing GeoNode, which is what we are going to install now. So after installing Python, we have the next step, which is installing Node.js, because we are going to be using it later, sometime later in this tutorial. So my preference, I normally install Node.js from this node source binary that is on GitHub. So I'm going to share with you the link in the video description. So I'll install the long-term release, and I'll just copy this and paste it in my terminal. So it's going to install the Node.js LTS, which is version 18 as at the time of this recording. So let's give it a while to install. So after installing the node, our node, we can confirm that it is installed by just typing node v and also npm, the node package manager -v. So I would welcome you to go and read more about Node or Node.js and npm from their official documentations if you want to learn more about them, because we are not going to cover that in this tutorial. So we are primarily dealing with installing of creating of the development environment. So the next step will be installing. So we will require Pipenv, for managing our virtual environments, and I have a post that I did recently for installing, managing virtual environments with Pipenv, and of course by extension using pip. So this is a post, you can have a look at it. This deals with pip, what is pip and how is it used. And additionally, I do have a post for Pipenv, I believe. And also another one for the virtual environment wrapper. If you want to check it out, you can see how it works and why you may need it. You can also refer to the Pipenv official documentation, which I'm also going to share the link in the description below. So to install Pipenv, I want to install it globally. So I'm just going to say Python 3 pip install Pipenv. So you're going to see some warnings. This is because it cannot install in the there is the root directory, which we do not have permissions to. So it will not install these package inside that directory. So it's going to install in this home directory that is in the users directory that I am using. So this Pipenv is restricted to my current user, but if you want to install it globally or for every user, you can use sudo. But I'm not going to be using that. So just to confirm that I've installed Pipenv, I'm just going to run a pip list command and just try and trace Pipenv. Don't worry about all these other commands. These are some of them have been installed with Ubuntu by default, and they support the operating system. So I have Pipenv, and this is a specific version. So our next step, let me just clear the operating system. So we are going to create a working directory. So I'm just going to write make dir, and I can call these health facilities, or maybe I can just call it health. Yeah, let me just call it health facilities. So the name seems long. Let me cd into health facilities, and I'm just going to run code dot. So this will tell VS Code, since I have Visual Studio Code installed in my Windows operating system, so it's going to kind of install or create a VS Code server inside the Linux environment. So you'll see it installing and pulling the server. So after it has completed installing, it will open the VS Code, and this is how it's loading, or it's opening the VS Code, and you'll see that it has indicated below here that it is running in WSL, Ubuntu 22.04. So from now on, yeah, it's going to bring this pop-up. Of course, I trust the authors because I am the author. So from now on, we are going to be using this VS Code for most of our operations. Yeah, so the final thing, we can also create or open a terminal inside these the VS Code editor. And before I forget, I think we need to install the necessary extensions. For many part of my tutorials, I've been using I've been using PyCharm from JetBrains, but in this case, I'm going to be using the VS Code editor, which is readily available and it is open source. So to start, I'm just going to install Python. You can just open the extensions and install Python because our project will be Python based. And then another additional item we're going to be using is black for formatting, black formatter. There are various formatters that you can use, which include forgotten the names. We have AutoPep 8 and others, but for me, I'm going to use this black. So it is installing. And the other item that I think I can also add is Django. There's one Django extension by Baptiste. I usually find it quite useful. And then, yeah, after it has installed, let me see if we have any other extensions that we need. Yeah, of course, we are going to also use the Docker at some point. So I'm just going to, let me just install it right now. Maybe we can also have the YAML for the YAML extension, or for writing some configurations, or the YAML configurations. Yeah, so for now, I think those should work. And then let them just complete installing, and then we can see how we can move forward. So finally, there's a software that I forgot about, and that is PostgreSQL. Because we will require a database, and we'll be using PostGIS database. I forgot to mention it in the tools that we require. And that one I'll install it using the reference from their website. I'm going to share the link. But nevertheless, let me just add it here on the site. So these downloads, Linux. We have Linux, Ubuntu. I'm just going to copy the contents here. And then I'm going to amend something because I'm using a 64-bit based operating system. So I'm going to add a space there. Inside these brackets, I'm going to say architecture is equals to AMD 64, and then close the bracket. Then I'm just going to, so it has added that to our list for Ubuntu. The next is downloading the key. So this warning indicates that the apt key was deprecated, I think from Ubuntu 20. But nevertheless, I'll do a quick override, although this one is not recommended. So etc apt trusted. I need to move the keys to the trusted directory. trusted.d. Yeah, and then now we can run our update sudo apt update, and then now we can install our Postgres using this command. But I'm going to add PostGIS as well, because it's something that we need for these to work. So I'll add PostgreSQL, PostGIS. Oops. PostGIS. Yeah, so let's give it some time to complete installing. While it's installing, PostGIS is a very important tool. It's an extension for Postgres that deals with location or geographic or geospatial data, like the data that we have edited in our previous tutorial. So we are going to require a database that supports, or a spatially enabled database, and the best case in this scenario, the best enterprise open source database is PostGIS. As it's installing, something else that is worth mentioning is remember to check the requirements for PostgreSQL if your computer supports it in terms of the RAM, processor, and all that. Especially one thing to do with the PostGIS databases, especially in a production environment, it may require some more kind of requirements, because you're dealing with spatial, like doing spatial analysis or manipulating geospatial data, may require some kind of processes and maybe threading, multi-threading and all that. So it has successfully installed. So I'm just gonna clear, and I'm gonna just create a database for this. So sudo IU Postgres, and I'm going to enter into a PSQL shell. So I'm quickly going to create a database. Create database health facilities. Yeah, that end the statement. Then I'm gonna log into the database for health facilities, and then I'm going to create an extension called PostGIS that will enable us to manipulate spatial data. PostGIS. And then I'm gonna exit. No need. So I'm gonna create a user role. Let me call it. I'm just gonna call it jkaraoke, and with password. So let me just call it health facilities. So notice the threes that I've replaced on the e's. Yeah, then I'm gonna grant permissions to this database. Grant all on database health facilities to jkaraoke. And then additionally, I'm going to alter the ownership of the database. Alter database health facilities owner. I'm going to change the owner to jkaraoke. So I'm doing that because there's something with the Postgres 15 that 14, I think from 14, because of the encryption, the authentication mechanism. So there are some additional commands that we need to run. But nevertheless, you can refer to all of these from the documentation. From the documentation of Postgres. So yeah, so we have set up our PostgreSQL. So I'm just going to exit with a /q, and I can exit back to the normal shell for Ubuntu. So I'm also going to install Git if it's not there. Luckily, we already have Git. So why we are using Git is because we are going to be pushing our changes into GitHub. Yeah, so these are the tools that we are going to be using, and this summarizes our setting up of our development environment. So in our next tutorial, we are going to see how we are going to quickly set up our Django project, and and also set up our virtual environment for our project. Alike, you can also share with others who find it interesting, and thank you for your support, and see you in the next one.